Hi, I'm Fahmi and you're in the stream. Today, minority rights in Malaysia. After religious authorities seized hundreds of Bibles containing the Arabic word for God, is there cause for concern? Our digital producer Malika Balau is here looking out for your live feedback. I don't think you can get more contentious in a stream debate than talking about religion or faith, and we are going there today.
We are going there.
Yeah.
And we're also hearing from people of all faiths, and of course from those who prescribe to no faith at all. And most of what I'm seeing is a sense of disbelief, a disappointment, and anger over the fact that there's a ban on the use of this word by Christians. And they look something like this. Soraya on Twitter says, "I'm a Muslim and I still want to question it. Why?" We also heard from someone on Facebook who sent us this. Darshan writes in, "I'm a Malaysian Christian and I don't have much choice, but I'll follow the law no matter how absurd it seems," he says. So for those of you at home, we want to hear your thoughts on this as well. Tweet us your questions and comments with hashtag AJStream.
He's going to be part of our conversation here in the studio. He is Kean Wong, and Kean is a Malaysian journalist who's been keeping a very close eye on this story. Kean, it's great to have you back here in the stream.
Thanks, Fahmi.
And we'll be hearing more from you in just a moment. Now, you watching, wherever you happen to be watching, on your laptop, at home, at work, you can join in the conversation as well. One of the ways you can do that is to go to stream.aljazeera.com and you can record a video comment. It's just 3 easy steps. You can even do it on your smartphone. And once you allow the little widget to do that, you can add your comment, your questions, and you too could be in the stream and record a stream message like this one.
I'm John Hudak. I'm a fellow in governance studies at the Brookings Institution, and I'm in the stream.
Islamic authorities in Malaysia have raided the country's Bible Society, seizing more than 300 Bibles. The reason? Well, the Bibles contain the Arabic word for God, Allah. Now, back in October, a Malaysian court ruled that the word should only be used by Muslims. Here's the chairman of the Bible Society of Malaysia describing the recent raid.
It was a very physical affair. I was surrounded by a group of them speaking loudly and threatening me. So eventually we let them in and they searched our premises, went through our books. They seized 16 boxes of Bibles, 321 Malay Bibles and 10 copies of the Bab Kudus, which is the Iban Bible.
Now, while many are once again arguing over who is allowed to use Allah when referring to God and who's not, others say there's a much larger issue at stake. So today, we want to find out what this confiscation of the Bibles actually means for Malaysia's religious minorities. And to help us do that, we're also joined by Hermen Shastri. He's General Secretary of the Council of Churches of Malaysia. Saifuddin Abdullah is member of Malaysia's ruling party, the United Malays National Organisation. We're hoping later to have Irwan Fahmi Ideris. He's Youth Chief of Perkasa, Malaysia, and that's a right-leaning ethnic Malay organisation. So hopefully Irwan will be joining us in just a moment. Gentlemen, it's great to have you all here in the stream. Hermen, I have to start with you because I must admit I am confused by this concept of Allah, the word for God in Arabic, not being able to be used in a Christian Bible. Can you explain it to us who don't happen to be Malaysian and might not have been following the story as closely as you are?
Yeah. No, I think the first point that needs to be made is that Christians have been translating the Bible with the use of the word Allah from many centuries now, and the Christians in Sabah and Sarawak, where the majority of Christians in the country live, have been using the Malay Bibles for many years, and so it comes as a great shock to the minority Christian community in Malaysia that now there is this prohibition on the use of the word Allah. I must also add that there are many Bible translations which use the word Allah in many other countries, like in Indonesia, in Urdu, in Turkey, and in those places it is no point of contention. So it is indeed a real problem for the Christian minority here in this country to be faced with the onslaught of this exclusive rights that are demanded by the Muslims on the use of the word Allah and many other theological words.
All right, so Kean, I'm still confused because Hermen just says, well, it's been a word that's been used in Christian literature, Christian Bibles for many, many years. I just want to see maybe what is the other side? You've been following the story. What is the other side?
Well, basically the thing is that the role of Islam in Malaysia is very much contained in a sort of a legal framework where the role of Islam is many ways related also to the identity of the majority Malay community, and in that regard they see many of these icons, if you like, including the word Allah, as sort of talismanic, if you like, to be part of that identity. They feel that if others begin to use it, you take away from the identity itself, you know.
Right.
And that is part of the contention, I think, that's going on.
Okay, so I've just got here on a laptop. Every time we do a Malaysia program, I bring up the same graphic. I'm sorry, everybody, if you're bored with it. It's very helpful. It's the breakdown of Malaysian society. It's an ethnic breakdown. So 67.4%. We're talking about Malay and also ethnic Malay. And the word is Bumputera. Okay.
I think we need to put a little footnote to those types of figures.
Yeah.
The problem with those over 60...
Can I finish the graphic
Sure,
though?
please,
Can I finish the pie chart and then we do the footnotes? All right. So then we've got 24.6% Chinese, then about just over 7% Indian, and then 0.7% others. So now, Kean, what's the footnote to that?
Well, I think the important thing to remember here is, I mean, which also speaks directly to this controversy, is that the majority of Christians in Malaysia are actually from the so-called native communities of Sabah and Sarawak in North Borneo. And many of them are counted in many ways as part of the Bumiputra over 60% proportion of the community.
Right.
They may not make a very big proportion of that, but I think it's important to note that about 4 to 5% of that 60% may well be Bumiputra, i.e., you know, native to Malaysia, but not necessarily Muslim.
Okay, so you shouldn't just assume that the majority are all Muslim. That's your footnote.
No, you shouldn't assume that if you mean Bumiputra, that everyone is Muslim.
Muslim.
The vast majority are Muslim.
Yes.
But not all.
Yes, I meant that, and you put it much better than I did. Malika, help me out here.
Well, as we're clarifying, there's someone who writes in and agrees basically with what Hermen mentioned a little bit earlier. On Facebook, Murad says, yes, the word Allah should be used for God by minorities if they desire. It was used by the Jewish and Christian Arabs before. Why should we limit them now? But Saifuddin, I want to go to you with this next comment sent to us on Facebook. This person writes in, this is like telling someone not to speak his or her language anymore because they feel that they're the only ones that have the right of using it. So as a member of a party, the ruling party, what is your response to this, and what do you say to criticism like this? People say you're telling people basically that they can't speak their own language anymore because this word is in the Malay language.
Okay, if I may first of all continue from Kean, you see, in the context of Malaysia, it is a fact that majority of Malaysian citizens are Muslim, and that the Christians, my Christian friends, will account to about 10% of the population. But the problem is, sometimes some of my Muslim brothers, Muslim friends felt that it is as if Islam is under siege, and they are reacting to the situation in a manner which I thought did not really represent how Muslims should treat people of other faith. And I think this has got something to do with worldview. If our worldview as government or as leaders or as whoever in the country, if our worldview and our approach is harsh, and we tend to be anti somebody or anti someone, and if we tend to be divisive, then we have a certain way of acting. But I believe we should be promoting understanding. We should be promoting tolerance and harmony and inclusiveness and respect the freedom and the rights of and the practice of people of other faith in the way and in the manner that they deem suitable for their faith.
So Saifuddin, I have just a phrase that just leapt out at me, that Islam is under siege. Can you give me an example in Malaysia why people would even think that?
Because from some sectors of the Muslim population, they are acting as if it is Islam that is under siege.
But they might but in what way though? Give us something concrete to understand.
When people make pronouncement, before this there was people who made pronouncement that we should burn the Bible if it is translated in Malay or something like that. You see, this is a problem because Islam is actually a religion of peace. It is a religion of tolerance, and if we were to practice Islam to the full, I mean the fundamentals, Islam stresses about no compulsion in religion. Islam is about rahmat, which means mercy. Islam is about wasatiyah, which means the middle path. Moderation is a very important approach in Islam, and I think it is very important for Muslims in this country to relook at this situation. We must find a way to address the situation in the most appropriate manner, so that we on the one hand we respect the freedom, the rights and the practices of our brothers and sisters from other faiths.
I hear a voice of moderation there. Malika, what are you hearing from our community?
Well, one of the things that Saifuddin mentioned was Islam being a religion of tolerance and of peace, and there's a question here from someone that, Hermen, I'll direct this to you. This is a video comment. Have a listen.
Although racial and religious issues have been a long-standing problem in Malaysia, over the last decade or so, we've seen a higher intolerance towards non-Muslims, and with no one defending, no authorities, the police or government authorities defending the minority religions, we see them being mistreated and left out in the cold.
So Hermen, he says these religious minorities feel that they're left defenseless. Is that the sentiment that you think is accurate?
No, I think with the rising Islamizations that is trying to dominate policy and influence law in the country, definitely many of the minority religious communities in Malaysia feel that their freedoms are being threatened. And I think one of the fundamental things about religious freedom is that each religious community has a right to practice and profess and administer their faith. And so what we have now developing in the country is one faith telling another faith how they should be translating their holy books. And this is totally unacceptable, and this is going beyond the bonds of interfaith understanding and building harmony between religious communities.
Let me just bring in Irwan here. Irwan, I know you're on the phone listening into this conversation. What do you make of what Hermen just said? One faith telling another faith what they should be doing in their religious books. If that was the other way around, would you be comfortable with that?
Hello?
Hey, Irwan.
Okay, basically what happened now in we see in Malaysia as well, the ways that we practice Muslim, we have a bit tolerance with others religion, because now what we are doing, we are acting according to the laws and according to the constitutions that saying Islam. Hello.
Yes, we're listening to you. That was just me listening. Okay. I was listening and thinking. So let me ask you, Irwan, very directly. So we have a Malay Christian Bible. I'm just going to show you here on my laptop. I don't even have to ask you to imagine it. So we take a Malay Christian Bible like this one, and then we look at it, and then we go very close, and then we're going to find Allah. We're going to find the word for God all through this Christian Bible. Are you saying that that Malay Christian Bible right now today in the states that don't allow it should not have that word in it? That Allah should not be in the Malay Christian Bible?
No, what happened to the Malay only implement to the Malay Bible? What happened to the other Bible? That's the question. What are the intention? The word Allah including to the Malay Bible.
So
even though we can, yes.
So here, there's a bigger question going on here, because our audience are watching this going, They're arguing about one word. Let's make this much broader. Kean, for instance, the ruling party. What are they doing? Because I can see there's some schisms. If the majority of the faith in Malaysia happen to be Muslim, and then Saif was saying that they feel like they're under attack, Christian Bible Society is being raided. So there's some issues going on here. Can you help unpack them for us a little bit? What's actually happening? I'm going to point this to Kean, then we'll jump in with the other guests. One moment.
I think one thing that we need to emphasize and keep in mind is that it's important to remember that the Muslim community and the so-called Malay community in Malaysia are not monolithic.
Yes.
There are a variety of opinions on this. Secondly,
but the ruling party, though, let's
I think we're getting back to that. The ruling party perhaps is where you have this feeling of being besieged. I mean, Saifuddin raised quite rightly that there is this broad perception perhaps of Islam being under siege in Malaysia, but in fact let's drill down to that and be a bit more specific. Could it be that the party itself is under siege?
All right.
Kean, when I say that, I say it is what I see. That's not me, okay?
No, I agree. But I'm just saying it's a perception that you have raised.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people who look at Malaysia, both abroad and within, I think are beginning to bring out that same analyses about the fact that since last May's relatively poor outing by UMNO and its ruling coalition, there have been a whole series of incidents which in some ways, some would allege, are trying to distract from actually the very real problems of political and economic reform that are not being addressed over, you could say, the dramatic thunder and fury of issues like the Allah saga.
Well, it's interesting you just said that. I just got this tweet. Baim writes
may
in,
I interject
Allah.
here?
Saifuddin, I'm actually going to come to you with this because Baim tweets in this Allah issue is actually a diversion from the real issues. Unity is still intact, but the ruling coalition is not. And we got a lot of criticism about the ruling coalition. Christian says UMNO, the ruling coalition's agenda is set, secure the Muslim votes to survive. Another person writes in, this is an attempt to shore up support for Muslims. So how do you respond to that criticism?
Well, there are two things here. Number one, I do not deny that there are people in my party who are thinking that because, well, in the first place, UMNO did better in the last GE13 than GE12. It is Barisan Nasional, the National Front Coalition, that did less better than GE12. But having said that, I don't deny the fact that there are my friends in the party who thought that the way forward for the next GE is to secure the Malay and Muslim votes. But I have been sharing with my friends that the Muslim and Malay voters are by no means homogeneous. They have their own way of looking at things. If you were to use simple arithmetic, then I wouldn't lose, for instance, in my constituency because the majority are Malays. But Malaysian politics are becoming more dynamic, and I think if UMNO and Barisan is of the opinion that we can win the next election by doing this, I think we are on the wrong track.
Kean.
I think we need to also remember, and in a way to echo from.
Absolutely. Kean, can you make that point very briefly, and then Hermen, I hear you, and we're going to go to.
We just need to remember, just to back up what Saifuddin is sort of saying. We also need to remember there is a bit of a crisis of legitimacy and credibility here surrounding the current Prime Minister, given that the government won the majority of the seats in Parliament but lost the popular vote. I mean, that has sort of been hanging around the legitimacy of the government like a bad smell since the May elections.
So this all comes back to this looking at the Christian Bibles. Hermen, help us out. Make the connection for us.
I just want to interject at this point and just say this. I think it's an assumption that the whole Muslim population in the country is against the use of the word Allah. That's not true. That's not true because we have many voices within the Muslim community in Malaysia who hold another contrary view. Secondly, if it is the government who is sanctioning the exclusive use of the word Allah, it also contradicts itself, because in the year 2010 there was an understanding reached that the Christians in Sabah and Sarawak, mainly representing the indigenous communities there, may be allowed to continue to use the Malay version of the Bible, which contains the word Allah.
Hermen, can I just may I just actually share something with our audience, because this is really quite impressive, and we spent a long time making this. There's something called a 10-point plan, which was an idea that the government put forward. That the idea was like, let's not ever have to have a conversation about what words we can and can't use as Christians or Muslims. Let's just lay it out. So there are 10 points. I'm just going to make it very easy for you. You can go to stream.aljazeera.com and read them all there. But point 1 to 8 is all about Bibles and what you can and can't do, and basically Bibles that are imported, you can use the word Allah in them. And then point 9 and 10 was all about interfaith dialogue. Like, this seems like a fantastic plan that doesn't seem to be working right now.
Right. Well, Fahmi, if I can interject.
No, it's because
everyone wants to interject. Who's we allowed to interject first? I'm going to overrule you all and allow Malika to interject.
The community is interjecting.
Ladies power. Ladies power.
Yes, absolutely.
And this is a lady who's actually tweeting in, and her question is a little bit broader in what this does for people on the ground today. Idman writes in, instead of bridging the gap between Muslims and Christians, we're widening the gulf of separation between them with silly things like this. One more person writes in, Malaysia should never be considered to be a moderate country. Lots of undercurrents regarding religious extremism. So Kean, do you want to tackle that one for us? Because of course there is this perception and a view of Malaysia being, you know, a beacon of tolerance and multiculturalism.
I think to be fair, I would agree with Saifuddin's colleague Razali Ismail, who only a day or two ago was arguing that this whole issue is being egged on and fueled in a way by an extreme element in society in Malaysia. I think it's also fair to say that Malaysia is fairly multicultural, multi-complex, and in many ways within Islam there are various schisms in Malaysia, to the extent that there are various arms of Saifuddin's party who've been trying to run some sort of anti-Shia campaign, partly, as some would argue, as some sort of political wedge.
So Kean, I'm just going to remind you, in the last minute of our show, you're going to be clarifying this conversation for us, not adding more depth and context and footnotes.
Unfortunately,
in 1 minute.
This is the iceberg, right?
I thought you might say that.
This is the iceberg.
Okay.
I mean, we are seeing the Allah issue as the tip of this iceberg.
Right.
And there are a whole bunch of issues that are unresolved. And in some ways, the way to resolve this is to have better governance or better political leadership. And this is something I'm sure your people online are lamenting.
Right. We are going to take our giant iceberg and move it to the post show at stream.aljazeera.com. And gentlemen, I know you were all ready to interject. I love those interjections that come at the last minute of the show. We know that we've got a vibrant conversation to take online. So Saifuddin Abdullah, also Hermen Shastri, and then Kean Wong, we're going to be bringing you this. We've only just got started. We're here at the very tip, but we are going to continue our Malaysia conversation, not just on the online show, but coming up on Monday. Have you ever heard of an artist called Yuna? Kean? Yes. Malika?
But of course.
All right, tell us about Yuna.
I'm excited. She's a Malaysian entertainer, singer, musician.
All right, Kean?
Twins separated at birth.
Oh my goodness.
That's a compliment.
She's going to be sitting where you're sitting on Monday. So Yuna fans, we will speak to the Malaysian pop star about her rise to fame, balancing Islam and a career in the music industry, and her new album Nocturnal. Malika's already been listening to it. Don't forget to tune in. It's going to be a great show. Malaysia on Thursday, Malaysia on Monday. Bit of a theme going on here. We'll see you online. Thanks for watching. Hello again, this is the Streams Online Post Show. Now, we've been talking about minority rights in Malaysia after more than 300 Bibles were seized from a Christian group because they contained the Arabic word for God. Our guests are Kean Wong, he's a Malaysian journalist. Hermen Shastri is General Secretary for the Council of Churches of Malaysia. And Saifuddin Abdullah is member of Malaysia's ruling party, the United Malays National Organisation. So one of my favourite words or phrases is, may I interject? My answer is always yes. So, where were we leaving off? Saifuddin, I know you had something more to add, so we're going to pick up where we left off. It's obviously, this conversation is obviously not about the word Allah in Christian Malay Bibles. It is so not about that, right?
Well, you see, I want to refer back to Shastri's mention about the 10-point solution. I think this is a very important document. I know, I understand we have the court case. I believe the Herald friends of mine will be appealing to a higher court.
And do you want to just explain that very briefly, because you mentioned it and now our audience outside of Malaysia are not going to know what you're talking about there.
Yeah, the 10-point solution started with the Prime Minister Najib writing to Bishop Ng Mong Hing in April 2011, offering a way to address the issue at that moment in time, and it was agreed by the Christian community, in particular the Christian Federation of Malaysia. And this is about allowing Bibles in all languages can be imported into Malaysia, including the Bahasa Malaysia, including the Malay and Indonesian language. If I'm not mistaken, Reverend Shastri can correct me, the imported version is normally in Indonesian language, and that this Bible can also be printed locally in Peninsular Malaysia, Sabah and Sarawak. And this is a new development. And Bibles in indigenous languages of Sabah and Sarawak, such as Iban, Kadazan, Dusun, and Lutpawang.
We've got that rundown on our website, but the court case in particular. Yes, the court case. Now
the issue is there a possibility? Is there a possibility where we can revisit the 10-point solution? Is there a possibility that we can? Because on the 6th of January, the Prime Minister made, I think, an important an important statement that we can diffuse the current problem. We all know about the problem by dialogue and the rule of law. The fact that he mentioned two things, dialogue and the rule of law. Now I'm thinking, is there a possibility that we can settle this thing amicably, short of saying out of court?
Do you mind taking a pause so Hermen can jump in there? Hermen, go ahead.
Yes, very quickly, I would like just say that firstly, as far as the religious communities in Malaysia are concerned, and this does not only apply to Christians, it applies to all the other religious communities, is that there is a constitutional guarantee to the freedom of religion, for the free practice of their religion. And so that should be upheld, because a statement like what the Prime Minister has said, and with reference to the 10-point, only upholds the truth of the matter, that there is a constitutional guarantee for the citizens of Malaysia belonging to non-Islamic religious communities to practice their faith. And so then the government must be consistent in applying this law. And what we have now is that people demonstrating in front of churches or threatening to demonstrate or seizing the Bibles. I mean, how can you go, when you have a 10-point solution upheld by the government, you allow Muslim religious enforcement officers to go into the premises of the Bible Society and seize the Malay Bibles. And the government just sits by and allows that to happen.
All right, so gentlemen, our community just give me a moment so I can get in. I know there's another guest here in our conversation. It's called the community, so let me just give them some space so they can jump into.
Well, actually, Hermen, I'm going to pick up on a point that you raised, because you just said that you know the government needs to be consistent in applying the law to everyone, and there's members of our community that say clearly that's not happening. Kean, have a listen to this video comment.
Religious freedom never existed as such in Malaysia, especially for Muslims, but the constitution protects the freedom of non-Muslims to practice their respective religions, but unfortunately with caveats. So the question is not whether religious freedom is under threat, but why are the Christians and the religious minorities being targeted by the government? Christianophobia and religious hate being stoked by the government and its media are efforts to divert attention from the mass uproar on the rising cost of living.
So he mentions two things. One, he says that they're being targeted by the government. You're nodding your head, but he also mentions something that we touched on earlier. He says they're diverting attention, the ruling party, diverting attention away from the rising cost of living.
Well, it's true. I mean, one of the most popular satirical mail-outs that everyone seems to be sending out is this mock-up calendar for the year, in which every month there's this attractive graphic noting which prices are rising, whether it's toll roads or price of basic goods or whatever. And the cost of living is much higher than people, I think, are logging, recording officially. And the vast majority of Malaysians these days live in urban centres. And it is in urban centres where these cost of living rises are affecting people the most. And there's a lot of uncertainty, you know, since, I mean, in some ways, elections should provide in the aftermath some sort of political certainty. And I think in Malaysia's case, as in some other countries as well, like Cambodia, the aftermath of the May elections have actually in some ways created more uncertainty, because the ruling party and the coalition have now got a great contest within, which I'm sure Saifuddin, if he was allowed to be more candid, might be able to enlighten us with.
He is allowed to be more candid, Saifuddin, aren't you?
I've always been very candid.
It's the post-show.
Maybe that's the cost to his career. Actually,
No. I think. Yeah, I understand Hermen Shastri's comment. Yeah, but you see, to be fair, what happened recently, last 2 Thursdays, the confiscation of the Bible falls under one of the state in Malaysia, which is under the state of Selangor, and the religious authority of the state of Selangor was the one. So it's not the federal government; it's the state of Selangor. But I understand Reverend Shastri's feeling. Why is it that some leaders don't seem to be making their stand? But as a member of the National Unity Consultative Council, on the 6th of January, we made a statement that we regret that the Selangor religious authority raided and confiscated the Bibles, because we thought this is an act that was blatantly going against the 10-point solution. Now, that is why I thought that at this moment in time, we probably want to find ways and means how we can actually practice the 10-point solution. I know there are difficulties in the past. I know there are hiccups here and there, but I think there is still a chance if we can actually, dialogue and try to find ways. Yeah.
Hermen?
No, yeah, but Saifuddin, I think it has to be made clear that what they had done was not right. It is authorities of one religion imposing their will upon
so
the
Hermen,
adherents
you
of
made
another
that
religion.
point so clearly and so beautifully. But where do you go from here? Where do you see that there's room for dialogue?
I think part of the whole complication with regard to this matter is because of the government not taking a firm and consistent stand and offering mixed signals to the population of the country. So on one hand, you have the government that says we uphold the rights of all minority religious communities. On the other hand, there are incidences where Muslim enforcement officers are policing the rights of other religious communities.
Okay, so Malika.
You asked what's the way forward, where do you go from here? There's a couple solutions online. Salah tweets in, Muslims and Christians in Malaysia need to work on what unites them, such as human development and tolerance. Easier said than done, most likely. And one more from Nafio, one of our AJ Stream frequent tweeters. He writes in, the use of Allah should be a source of unity, not a source of friction for Muslims and Christians in Malaysia.
So what I find really interesting, Saifuddin, is that outside of Malaysia, Malaysia has this reputation for being incredibly moderate. There's so many ethnic groups, they work together so well. I'm wondering what this story about the confiscation of Bibles and the banning of the word Allah might have in terms of the reputation that Malaysia has internationally.
Well, unfortunately, it's not a good narrative for at this moment in time, and that is why I thought for two points here. Number one, it's not so much because of our public relations to the global citizen, but secondly, which is even more important, is for the integration and unity of Malaysians. I know there have been mistakes in the past. We can go on blaming this, but I am. As I said earlier on, we have to sit down. I'll be at many of us I know.
You have to, or are you going to? I'm just going to remind everybody that you're part of the ruling party here. You have to, or you're going to. They're two different things.
No. Some of us have already been talking to each other from both Christian and Muslim faith. There are efforts going. There are people. There are dialogues going on, and I think there are people seriously trying to find ways to overcome this as soon as we can. Yes.
Right. Well, that's an encouraging note to wrap up this conversation on. I want to say thank you to Hermen Shastri, to also Saifuddin Abdullah, you've just been hearing to Saifuddin, Irwan, Fahmi, Ideris, who joined us very briefly, but I'm sure he's watching online, and also to Kean Wong, who wrote something down on his piece of paper. And bearing in mind the way we ended the main show, I am not going to ask you what it is.
No, don't worry. Forget about it.
To be continued.
That's right.
Thank you very much to everybody, to the online community, for being part of this conversation. So, coming up on the next show, we are staying with Malaysia. Calling all UNA fans, we will speak to the Malaysian pop star about her rise to fame, balancing Islam and a career in the music industry, and her new album Nocturnal. Malika, you've listened to Nocturnal a little bit.
Yeah.
How is it?
I love it.
Yes, of course you have to say that in case UNA is watching. You'll be able to see her sitting here on the set on the next AJ stream. So don't forget to tune in. We will see you online. Take care.